Lancaster County Wetland Board will come to order. And we'd like to welcome all present and anyone wishing to speak to any of the application. Please indicate so that you will be able to do this. I'd like to start off by introducing the staff and members. To my right over here is Brian Barnes. He used to be I guess he still is part environmental code and compliance officer, but he's now also in zoning. And this is Hannah Smith, and she's an environmental code and compliance officer. And to my left over there is Crystal Way, and Glenn Rowe is responsible for all this electronic. To my left is Will Tolles, Cecil Little, Bruce Julian, and Ransom, and in the audience is Mr. Lance, Mr. Had, and Mr. Sled, and they are alternate members. And
Don't forget the
I
strength.
ain't finished.
You're interrupting. Oh, wait, I'm interrupting you. Wait.
And to my left here is Jay Woodward with BMRC. With that said, before we go any further, staff wishes to speak, please.
You can go to the next slide. Okay, with the board, for a couple months when we go to sites and we look at projects, and especially over the winter, we saw a lot of projects that involved heavy bank manipulation and some that don't involve any bank manipulation. And there's been a big concern for forever, for the 13 years I've been doing this, between the jurisdictions. And what we did is just pop this slide up here for you all, just as a refresher. And I kind of see this as continuing what we've been doing. Some of our projects lately, we've gone back and looked at some sites that have been done. We looked at a living shoreline site, and we're just kind of every month we're trying to trickle out information and get us up to speed, because things have changed pretty quickly, and we just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And further to that point, last month you guys voted to modify the review sheet. So Hannah and I have done that. So, and that does not take effect with these projects, because these projects were already in the queue, and that's what you wanted. You wanted it to take effect to all the projects that came in after you took that vote. So next month you'll see where one of the first checks we make on that review sheet is to do the Bay Act check. So what I put in front of you this morning is the Water Quality Impact Assessment Landscape Plan Agreement, which is the main Bay Act component that we as staff use when a project, and you got one in front of you, Jay. Basically, the Bay Act requires that any vegetation, there's no 6-inch rule, any vegetation that's destroyed in that 100-foot buffer needs to be replaced with equal or greater value that's equal function. In some cases, on some of these steep banks, it's been weeping love grass, and we say you cannot mow it. And sometimes there's 5 years later, I'll go back and somebody's asking for a permit, and they've been mowing that weeping love grass, and we say, yep, no garage permit till you reestablish the weeping love grass. So that's kind of how the Bay Act works. The Bay Act is part of our land development code, so it has zoning power, but it's separate from the Wetlands Board. We've had a difficult time, and Bruce has made some good points that I agree with, is that it's very, very easy. And there again, for 13 years, people have done this to me over and over again. They want to do this, and they know that they can't do this, so they do this in this area of law, and they stay in that silo, and I can't touch them. And then another agency will come along and give them a permit, and the first thing that they do, this has happened to you guys with several violations over the years. They'll go and get an Army Corps permit, and what do? They come in here and all but wave it around in the air and say, well, I've got a permit from the Army Corps. What's wrong with you? And that's the easiest when you're doing law enforcement of any kind, whether it's environmental law enforcement or criminal law enforcement, the easiest thing a criminal can do, and I used to work in a prison, so I know this firsthand, the easiest thing you can do is just jump in another jurisdiction where you are legal and confuse things enough to get away with what you want. You guys don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. Sadly, the Bay Act has some of those flaws with it, and they are flaws. The Bay Act should have been extended to include wetlands areas. That way, once a project gets into your area, you could deny it based on a fear that bank manipulation that is improper could despoliate wetlands. Right now, we really cannot do that. But we're going to do the next best thing. I think this review sheet is the first step. And the next thing that's going to happen, and we're able to do this now because we're more properly staffed than we've been in a long time, is we're going to make sure that if a landscape plan agreement is needed, it will be done and it will be complete and it'll be in your packet when you go to the site. So when you look at it, that question, the vagary that remember Bruce brought it up a couple months ago with the project, bank graded as necessary. We can't, you're right, we cannot allow that to come to you guys anymore. So we're going to take care of that. That way you guys can better do your job within that jurisdiction. And you can see you guys go up to 1.5 times the mean tide range out to mean low, and that's your swath. Now what happens behind it can't affect you, and what you do there can affect the buffer. Hannah and I are your go-between for that. We're supposed to be helping you guys understand that that Bay Act part's going to be taken care of. That way it doesn't adversely affect your decision and vice versa. So that's kind of where I think we are, and I want to just get us on the same page. And to address, Cecil, your concerns, you talked about here, the responsibility for upland disturbances. The main responsibility for the upland disturbance is going to be with the county, either through Erosion and Sediment Control Act or the Bay Act. And we're going to make sure that a lot of that's done on the front side before these projects get to you. The projects now, especially the Living Shorelines projects, involve so many different moving parts. I think it is prudent for us to just kind of change the way we do that. The JPA does say that all that should be complete to make a complete application. So we're not going off a different sheet of music with this, and your other concern, future permit applications presented to the board for action will indicate that upland disturbance has been addressed. And yes, that's what you're going to see starting next month. All your projects that come to you, that'll be checked off, and hopefully our kind of concerns that we've had and our discussions that we've had in the last couple of months will be ameliorated a bit by that being addressed. The other two questions you guys had for us were involving your violations that were still out there. I'll start with the easiest one first, and that is Windmill Point. The Windmill Point Resort, when we tabled that in December, correct me if I'm wrong, they indicated to us that they were going to get a private consultant and come back with a better plan to address what they had already done without a permit and what they wanted to do, and hopefully get that permitted. That has not come to Jay, that has not come to me as of now. I think given that things have opened back up again with the courts and all, it may be time for staff to kind of step that back up and put the ball back in their court to address the issue. The good thing is that in that time, the county has submitted an application to address erosion control at Westland Beach. They, of course, have responded that they object. That's how the game is played. That being said, I had a meeting Tuesday when I missed y'all's site. I had a meeting Tuesday with several people. One group was the SEAS group, the Shoreline Erosion Advisory Service with DCR. They indicated that they do have a little pot of money over here where they could pay for a big plan to be drawn up that would cover the county side and the marina side and address, as you guys know, the shallow draft of that inlet is a perennial problem. I understand that some of the deeper draft sailboats can't get in there right now. It's gone back down to 4 or 5 foot controlling depth or less. So perfectly fine for power boats, but it needs to be dredged again. Historically, that dredge was used as beach nourishment. The fact that those cycles have stopped is part of the reason why the erosion's so bad there. It was historically, the erosion was kept at bay by the frequent I think, biennial dredging that occurred there. So what I might do is a carrot and a stick thing, if that's okay with you guys. I think I'm going to approach the windmill guys with the offer that, hey, we have this opportunity to get together on this. Some or all of your planning would be paid for. Some of your dredging might even be paid for, because now there's shallow draft money available again for the northern neck. We only have 2 channels in the county that really need dredging, and that's one of them. So that's kind of the way we're going to go with that one, if that's okay. You don't really need to take a vote on it. That's just the way we'll work it based on your directions from December. The Flamia case,
Question on Windmill Point. Are you saying that the adjacent landowner is formally objecting to the county's application?
yes,
So, Mr. Woodward, that would go to the full
in
commission?
email to me. They haven't sent it to you yet, but they have told us that they object.
And is that the owner or the decision maker? Is that a person?
That was actually an email from the actual head of the corporation that owns the marina, yeah.
Now, did I hear you say that Seas wants to fund the amelioration of a violation?
Well, no, they would, what they told me is that they have some money that could go towards coming up with a proper plan for that whole reach of shoreline. Fixing the violation would be up to us. And likely what we would have to do is get them to enter into an agreement with us. It gets a little complicated, but basically the county would be the applicant for the money, not the marina, not a private entity. It really needs to go to a public body. So if you read between the lines on that, what the marina needs to do then to make that happen would be to agree to allow a permanent easement for the public all the way to the jetties.
A perpetual easement. I just got concerned there where I heard public tax dollars being used to fix somebody's violation.
Well, yes, I agree, yeah. At this point, it's just talk too, so that may be something that doesn't happen.
Thank you.
Flamia was handed over to the county attorney back in late February timeframe. That individual has an attorney who began to discuss things with the county attorney, and they have contracted Craig Palubinsky to come up with a proper plan to deal with the gravel they put on the beach and the after-the-fact approval. I think there again, they have engaged Seas to give them some advice on maybe they shouldn't have laid gravel on here and done this unauthorized riprap. Maybe what they need is low-profile breakwaters out front, pull the gravel up, sand nourishment, and put it to bed with wetland plantings and basically a living shoreline treatment to try to fix the violation. Interesting things happen when 2 lawyers start talking. Staff is out of it. So that's kind of where that is. I've been advised for us to hold off and give them maybe till August to come up with a plan that's submitted to VMRC. If not, then the suit will go forward. The lawsuit goes to circuit court. And that's kind of where it is. That suit has been drafted. That attorney's seen it. It just hasn't been formally filed because they were then willing to come to the table and negotiate.
So as it stands right now, you anticipate it going through the full JPA process?
I do. The interesting thing, just so you know, that will then come back to you again. You may have private feelings about that. I might agree with you after 5 p.m. That being said, that's just the way that it's working out with the attorneys.
Thank you.
The ideal at the end of the day is to get the violation corrected, get it fixed, and get that. As you guys know from being to that site, what is there now is not going to protect that house and is not protecting that shoreline and is a violation. So I think they now realize that because other people have finally gotten to this guy and gotten him to understand, and his attorney's gotten him to understand that what he did was wrong, and not only was it wrong, it actually hurt his ability to protect that old house that's there. So stay tuned.
Way the tides rise in Maratico and in storm events, you know?
Yes, yeah.
But we will be advised by you or Hannah what's coming forward.
Yes, yeah, once that's resolved,
Okay.
we'll give you a report on that. And like I said, in the meantime, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, kind of on a parallel track, I hope to let Windmill know about this possible opportunity, if they're willing to come to the table and talk to us about it and be a partner. If not, then the violation is back on. I think they need to come back before you and either agree to remove the rock that they put down without a permit, or there again, that needs to go to circuit court and the judge can figure it out.
Okay.
I'd like to make just one comment. I think regarding jurisdictional boundaries, and Cecil, your comment, I think in reading the living shoreline guidelines adopted by the commission, it's clear the authority to do the process we're looking at, Brian, is documented on page 8
Yeah.
and page 12, that a alteration of the shoreline is not permitted unless compliance with the Bay Act is adhered to. Therefore, if you read all of these citations, I've got 4 of them marked, we can't act unless we know that. So I think the authority given to by the Commonwealth is certainly there.
Well, so like I said, I think having this done on the front side will streamline your process, and then it'll be a little bit wonky at first, just getting agents to get their, especially clients, nailed down. There have been times in the past where, and we've heard it, Jay's heard it in other jurisdictions where, well, sometimes we don't know what the bank's gonna look like until we get down there and start working with it. I think we're in a day and age where you're just gonna have to know ahead of time, plan for that, permit that. It comes to you guys, you know what the Bay Act impacts are gonna be. You can make a better decision on your end that's quicker, more streamlined. And then if they get into things and discover that the bank is, you know, I've seen where groundhogs have completely undermined it and you just weren't able to rebuild the bank the way it was, had to come back further, then Hannah and I can deal with that. Your authority already has been settled there with your jurisdiction, and then we'll deal with a change order, if you will, with the upland impacts.
Thank you.
Hannah, did you have anything to add? Brian,
Yeah, that's it.
want to go forward?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The first on the agenda is the application of Carrie, is it Snyder? Is there someone here representing him, please?
Good morning, my name is Robert Clater, representing the Snyders.
Okay, I'd like to read the ad in the paper, please. Harry Slater and Pierre Robert Clater is requesting permission to construct 35 linear feet of riprap embankment along the shoreline of Potter's Creek, located off Virginia State Highway 634, King Carter Drive on Trails Trail, tax map number 33-321, DMRC number 21-0955. Go ahead, please.
Yes, we visited this last month. There was a question about the drawing, which hopefully I corrected. The Snyders do want to proceed with the permit process for this 35-foot section. If you'll notice on the drawings, I did benchmark it to the residence. The measurements were 35 feet, basically straight uphill, so the residence is much closer to the water than 35 feet. So there is concern about the embankment that the house is currently sitting on.
Anyone on the board have any concerns?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Mr. Woodward, you decided what the permit type here is?
I'm sorry?
Have you decided permit type on this application?
permit type.
You say uncertain on your sheet.
I believe it's above mean low water, so it will be an NPN. I put uncertain when there's additional information required. And I just haven't gotten back to that yet.
Okay. And Mr. Claytor, on your revised drawings, well, I guess this is the original. Maybe I missed this. What's the slope of this riprap?
The slope of the riprap,
Yeah. We're gonna,
Do you have that on the next slide, Hannah?
like a 1 to 2. It's 5 feet wide, going up 4 feet.
so what's the slope?
Approximately 1 to 1.
This drawing here shows 4 feet up. It shows 2 feet of tidal range, but I don't see any horizontal measurement on this drawing. This page, Dan.
I apologize, I thought I had all my drawings right here in front of me. I don't have the cross-section drawing.
That's the one we have.
I should have brought my scale. This is to scale. It would appear to be 4 feet, 4 feet back and 4 feet high.
There at the top, you have a 1 to 2 ratio.
It's 1 inch equal 2 feet.
Oh, it's a colon. Oh, that's an equal sign? So it's a 1-to-1 slope on the rock?
Correct.
And in your revised submission on page 6, you indicate just 2 trees will be removed during the project?
The ones that are down, yes.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, Edna.
Anyone else have anything? You? No one else? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this application? If not, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I just have a question for Mr. Woodward, if he has any comments.
I meant to ask Jay and Brian, but excuse me for,
Well, now that in the new guidelines, Mr. Woodward, the default or treatment for every project is living shoreline. And then from there, the client or consultant must show that it will not work. Do you have any comments along those lines regarding this particular project? I understand that the neighbors don't want to participate in any joint project to deal with the sediment plume and the sediment coming down the draw, which is primarily on the neighbor. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, since the first treatment that every applicant and consultant must consider is a living shoreline treatment.
My comment would be that in order to be considered complete, given the new guidelines, a living shoreline statement must or shall be provided in the application. And I'm going back through that now to see if that was provided. And I could ask the agent if he had provided that. I don't see it And the revision maybe, hold on.
That was provided, it was read last month.
Page 8.
A living shoreline was considered. The revetment option is being proposed because the bank above the shoreline is roughly 15 feet tall with a slope steeper than 1-to-1. It was feared that the runoff would wash out the sand fill of a living shoreline. The steep slope also makes maintaining the plantings from the land side, excuse me, extremely risky. Parentheses, there are no paths, and parentheses. The maintenance from the water is likewise tricky because the river floor is dangerously soft due to existing silt runoff. There is also concern that the soft floor would not provide a stable platform for a riprap sill. So I believe that a living shoreline statement has been included in this application, therefore that particular requirement to meet completeness for review and hearing has been met.
I know the statement's there, that's supposed to represent best available science. I just am concerned.
I don't have best available science because without a VIMS report on a specific project, who is best available science, we don't have it.
Okay, I just want to go on record that the sediment plume there that exists on both properties, that this project isn't going to address the continued sediment flow. It will protect, as Mr. Clater says, but do you believe this will address the overland flow and the sediment that's being discharged into the creek?
Not from the gully. It
Okay.
certainly does not. That got very complicated because it's co-owners. This is simply to do what we could on our side of the line to protect what was existing.
Thank you. That's all.
No further comments and none from the public. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the project as submitted to include the revisions.
Second.
All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Okay. The next on the agenda is Lewis Bird. Is someone here to represent him, please?
I also represent Mr. and Mrs. Bird.
Okay. I'd like to read the ad, please. Lewis Bird and Kia Robert Plater is requesting permission to construct 60 linear feet of riprap revetment and a 65 linear foot marsh seal along the shoreline of the Currituck River, located off Virginia State Highway 614 Devil's Bottom Road on Virginia State Highway 784 Laurel Point Road, tax map number 22A-1-20, VMRC number 21-1116. Go ahead, Mr. Clater.
Yes, this is the shoreline, two very distinct shorelines. One is very, very steep, very, very tall. We're recommending a revetment. That is the sharp revetment from point A to point B there. That's where we're requesting you can see the existing revetment. We're requesting just a continuation of that existing revetment. Around the corner from point B to point C, which this is point B and point C, you'll see the shoreline changes. You'll see existing grasses. The request here is to transition that riprap revetment into a sill across that area, which very clearly shows the low water and high water mark, gives us about 5 feet to put a sill in. The existing grasses they're plush, they're growing like mad. There's no other additions that we are requesting at this time. We are saying that we'll go back in a year to make sure that the grasses survive, and then if they need further nourishment, we'll address that. But right now, the runoff from the slope should continue to fill that and keep the grasses nourished. So again, this is current. That last slide was a good slide to show how plush the grasses are and approximately where the sill will be. This is a high tide version. You saw the low tide version of this same shot. This is a high tide version, and you can see this is a relatively current photo with the grasses doing quite well. So it's just a request to put the sill in front of those.
You ready? Is anyone on the board have any comments or suggestions?
So in your revision, you indicate just 3 trees will be removed, those fallen trees, and there will be, the primary access will be by water with no clearing except for those damaged trees. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. There'll be no grading, nothing, I'm sure.
And then I guess a question for staff. Mr. Plater's indication that the site will be reevaluated in 1 year to determine if additional fill or plantings are required. How would that happen? And how do we track things like that? Should that be a permit? Should that be a condition of this approval?
It could be, it could be.
Yes.
Generally, something like that might be that what the contractor does themselves, just as quality control. In some cases, in the past, the board has put conditions on that where it's a check. Living shorelines are generally checked a year later to ensure survivability of the plants. So that's something that would be up to you guys to do in this case.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board? Well, Brian's just, and now Jay, do you have any comments?
One comment I would make is on the revision, while you got some benchmarks and showing the difference between the riprap portion and the sill portion, it doesn't show filter cloth. It's just, you're gonna have to get in the habit of adding filter cloth. I mean, it can't be assumed, I don't believe, in this day and age, that everybody knows how they're supposed to do it. And in an effort to be more consistent and in compliance with making an application complete, it really should be there.
Understood. That was a mission on my part, not
So
intentional.
what you're saying is a revision showing these changes, or adding to
Yeah,
showing,
that's up to you, like the last question. I mean, if you need to see that and would like to see that, I think it should be there. I hesitate to throw too much stuff out at a meeting, but as this board has done before and other boards have done before, approved per the revisions like the last one, or approved, provided revisions are submitted to staff that are acceptable and in compliance with what it is that you're looking for.
whoever.
I don't want to tell the board what to put in their motion, but
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? If not, perhaps whomever makes the motion could add that language that states this revision be submitted to Hannah or to the, staff before the permit is signed. How does it?
Is that acceptable to you, Rob? That these omissions you've referenced, that be submitted to staff?
Absolutely. I'll have that done promptly. That was
Whoever makes the motion. So I obtain a motion to, on this, if there's no further concerns. Do I hear a motion, please?
Make sure you open to the
I
public.
did.
You did?
Already.
Okay. Nobody online either?
I'll make a motion to approve the application as revised with the condition that the omissions that Mr. Clater has indicated be provided to staff prior to issuance of the permit, and that 1 year from the date of construction, that the applicant is responsible, or Mr. Clater, if he's still employed by the applicant, provide an evaluation of the site as indicated on the application.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay. Next on the agenda is Sean Mural. Someone here.
Yes, Joseph Scott, P.O. Box 315, Gilmartin, Virginia, 22482. I'm the agent for the applicant.
Okay, I'd like to read the ad, please. Sean Mural and care Joseph Scott is requesting permission to construct 290 linear feet of riprap revetment along the shoreline of Myers Creek, located off Virginia State Highway 625, Sibetown Road on Virginia State Highway 677, Lovers Lane. Tax map number 26-35B, VMRC number 21-1124. Go ahead.
Yes, this application is for a riprap placed at the base of a eroding bank that's up in a creek that is actually pretty deep. I was surprised at how deep it is, but thinking back, my dad has done some work in past years for the neighbor there doing landscape stuff, and we have seen actually sailboats anchored in that creek. But anyway, he has an existing buffer that he doesn't wish to disturb, so we figure the only way to really address the issue of the erosion at the base of the bank and to preserve the buffer is to build a revetment there. If you go offshore with any sort of sill structure, it would probably have to be about 4.5 feet tall, which I've seen breakwaters that are that tall. So the drop off is so quick there that it's going to make that very problematic to do. So hopefully removing some of the brush that's at the base of the bank and compacting the stone right up against the areas that are eroded the worst, if he can address this issue without having to remove any of the buffer or make any significant alterations, both to the buffer and to the subaqueous area, which would be required if you were to do a living shoreline. So if you have any questions.
Anyone have any concerns?
You indicate project will be done by water.
Yes, there's very little access. I mean, they may point, maybe 4 or 5, they may be able to stage at the bottom there, but they're still gonna have to place it by hand because there's just no way to get any equipment. I mean, you guys went down there, fences everywhere, a little fortress there. So it's gonna have to be done. It will have to be installed by water, and there's a possibility that they could have an access point in that bottom if they needed to, but I think more than likely they're going to find out it's just easier just to bring it all the way in rather than trying to mess with that. So
Mr. Woodward, you any comments on the living shoreline statement on page 8?
No comment.
Anyone else on the board have any concerns?
No, I don't have any concerns.
Oh,
I don't think this project would warrant a living shoreline project because of the depths of the water. And there is some significant undercutting that's disguised by the vegetation, so I think it's an approvable project.
okay, is anyone in there? Jay, do you have anything to add?
No, it's all above the mean low water line. It doesn't require a permit from VMRC.
Brian, Hannah? Anyone in the audience? If everyone's ready to make a motion, I'll entertain one.
Move that the project be approved as it's presented.
Okay, all, second, please.
I'll second.
Moved in second, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Okay. Okay. The next on the agenda is Keith Kidd.
Yes, Joseph Scott, P.O. Box 315, Kilmarnock, Virginia, 22482. I'm the agent for the applicant.
Okay. Like to read the ad, please. Keith Kidd and care of Joseph Scott is requesting permission to construct 65 linear feet of riprap revetment and repair 25 linear feet of existing riprap revetment along the shoreline of Taylor's Creek, located off Virginia State Highway 630, Taylor's Creek Road, on Virginia State Highway 733, Berkeley Forest Road, tax map number 26B-1-16, BMRC number 21-1189. Go ahead.
Yes, this is another request for a revetment, just a small amount, in an area that is experiencing some erosion. I believe I've done several down Taylor's Creek over the last 2 years, well, probably 18 months, and I'm not a scientist, so I guess I need to preface all of that sort of stuff, but I do see a lot of things. And one of the issues I think here is similar to another one that we've done nearby. There's a lot of groundwater coming out, and it's causing more of the bank erosion issues rather than wave energy or anything like that. So we're hoping to be able to put a revetment against the base of the bank in those areas to kind of, obviously the groundwater will still come through the filter cloth, the rock from the backside, but it will at least give the bank some stabilization along that area. Because at one time, as you can see from this picture right here, the revetment stopped right there at the corner, and all of that particular hill was stabilized, but it's obviously slumping down now. So again, the same sort of thought process of putting a revetment right against the base to address the issue of the seepage and to hopefully stabilize the base without doing a whole lot of upland alteration. I did mention to the applicant, he's actually here today, we talked on site about also doing some stuff up above the revetment in terms of, because he's got some, if you were at the site, you could see how the water runs down each of those sides. To try to be able to stabilize that upland area as well, to try to help this whole process once they put the stone in. It could be a little tricky because it's very sandy soil right there, and there's some big trees that are going to probably want to grab a lot of the vegetation. But at least that would be something that could potentially help with that runoff that's coming into that area. And then on section B, there's the stone goes on around that corner there. We're going to just kind of repair that and hook onto that and terminate it in that area just prior to that needle rush spit that's sticking out there. So if you have any questions that I might be able to answer.
Anyone on the board with any questions? Jay, do you have anything?
No, it's above mean low water, no jurisdiction for VMRC.
Brian, Hannah? Anyone in the audience?
Jay, any concerns with the living shoreline statement?
No, I see a living shoreline statement in the application, which makes it complete. And
Thank you.
If there's no further comments, I'll entertain a motion, please.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the project as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? It's been moved in second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Edna, I'd like to thank Hannah Smith for putting this PowerPoint together for all of the applications
Yes,
today.
I've done that also.
And I'd like to have that in the minutes, that this is really helpful for us, but also everybody else who's able to see what we see
Yes.
in the audience. And I think it really expedites the process, and I want to thank you for that.
I thank them so many times. Well, we appreciate that. And right now, I will, is there anything the board has to add to this meeting? If not, I'm turning this meeting over to staff to present the PowerPoint.
No, we took care of that at the front of the meeting. Yep.
Huh?
We took care of that at the front of the meeting.
Yeah, but she said she was gonna do. Oh,
No, that was a slide at the front, yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, remember we
I thought she
decided to
said she had some.
Go ahead and do it at the front of the meeting and get it out of the way.
Yeah, I
Yep.
thought she said she had some slides she wanted to show,
No, we
and
got
I
it.
didn't want to.
Any pictures of your dog or
Yeah, I'll throw them in there next time.
Well,
dogs?
the next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
I move that the minutes be approved.
Second,
Second.
raise your right hand. Okay, minutes is approved. Well, if there's no further thing anyone needs to say, I will adjourn this meeting at 10:16. Thank you.
Thank you.